Okay. Cain by José Saramago. This is my second book by Saramago. The first one being Blindness, which I literally just read only like maybe a month or two ago. So I'm quite new to his writing and his style, and but yeah, he's relatively modern as far as just time and gaps, or between a good amount of, not modernist as in Joyce, Virginia Woolf or T.H. Lawrence or Proust, but more and so in just a, he passed away in 2009, I think, maybe 2010, and he lived a long life, and he saw, I believe I said this before about how he saw the historical side of things with Chile. No, I'm sorry, no, Portugal. I'm sorry. Sometimes, embarrassingly enough, I get Peru and like Portugal mixed up. Portugal's like on the other side, but there's they're both like Latin kind of American countries, I believe. So I guess it would be considered Latin American, part of that kind of generation of writers, but with like Marquez, I guess, Jorges. But yeah, he's in an interesting perspective too, with like his he was involved in like socio-political kind of programs from as a youth up until like maybe I'm not sure when he kind of got out of that, but yeah, he was basically disillusioned by a lot of what he saw of like people's vying for power, or like trying to, just the way people utilized and wielded power over other people, like as if it was like a using other people as a means to an end, as a commodity, as kind of made him sickened by like this weird dynamic way that the extremists think, it's like it always ends up, and he's right in a way, because if you look at so many different people with the best intentions, whether it's like the Jacobins and French Revolution, 1790s, and like that Enlightenment, high off of Enlightenment ideals of dare to know, like Voltaire, like such reasonable people, Hegel, like I doubt that any of them would ever have dreamt of seeing a guillotine being so swiftly chopping people's heads off. But yeah, this idea that the enlightened people like you, that if it takes a few years of horrible murders for a century, like the way they were weighing it, was for posterity in their heads, I guess, not to justify anything what they did, but so yeah, I guess luckily I don't think Saramago saw kind of that same thing, but with Blindness, I got the sense that there was he was mistrustful, doubtful of like people, like power in the hands of the average person, and in the same way that Plato was skeptical of democracy, like the people, voting for, the demos people voting for having power to make a sway in society is like a ship of fools too, because he thought that a fool piloted by an actual person, like a philosopher king, piloting a nation too, was how he went through his academy and his republic too, like the way he thought of as a strict republic with a philosopher king who was very well studied, and like tempered out and reasoned, was his idea. So rather than having, because Socrates, that led to his own role model, like his protege, like basically ended up dead because of democracy, found him guilty of for something pretty kind of menial and stupid if you think about it in hindsight. So yeah, Saramago had a lot to kind of dislike about that, but with Cain there's like a kind of more humorous tone to it, like a kind of dry humorous tone. It takes on the Bible, obviously the story of Cain and Abel, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that he delved not just into that, but not just into an isolated story, but like kind of the Bible as a whole, and he took from different stories of different points in the Bible, mostly in Genesis, I think probably all in Genesis, but he takes them and weaves them together into a new kind of interesting story about kind of a different take, like almost a morality tale in that sense, where it's like he's like in a little bit like a picaresque kind of tale too, of like, you know, Cain escaping from the skin off his teeth or whatever. But yeah, he basically he gives kind of more of a, which reminds me of kind of like a Gnostic kind of sentiment too, of like he gives more of a sympathetic, empathetic ear to Cain. Like he doesn't just write him off as like he killed his brother, you know, because of his jealousy, and you know, but you know, he also holds God accountable for all this stuff. Like he's like just endlessly just indicting God, like being like, you killed all those Jericho people, the men and women. You called for the death of genocide of people of Sodom too, of all the innocent young people. You called for this, and like Cain is like oddly enough kind of standing up as a moral foil, I guess, to God in the sense, and God's just yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of kind of bile there. But with Cain, there's a lot of it's not too long. It's like, I want to say like a few hour read, I suppose, maybe 5 hours. And it's told, you know, kind of like in a way that kind of reminded me of Abel Sanchez by Miguel de Unamuno, in the sense too that there was, it's like, well, but with Unamuno he takes a modern day, for where him was early 1900s, I suppose. I want to say he published in the 20s. I gotta do that one. But yeah, he takes kind of a context, modern day context, and then makes this story about two brothers, Abel Sanchez and his brother, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but some variation of Cain, you know, obviously Cain and Abel. But he tells it in a different light, and he calls it, you know, like the way of how they both kind of love and lust after the same woman, and they end up kind of competing, and, you know, like one of them gets so jealous, and, you know, obviously Cain gets so jealous of Abel, his brother, that he ends up, spoiler alert, killing him. So yeah, but it's told in like kind of a modern, under pretenses. So there's, you know, he's engaging more with that kind of surrounding, and like calling in, like making something new out of it, alchemically, I suppose you could say. But with a similar thing is happening, but Saramago takes like a, obviously there's a whole generation gap between the two writers, but there is a similarity in style almost. I got that sense of like him using this biblical story in a different kind of perspective, and like leaning and retelling it, and re-visualizing it too, putting it in a new perspective, obviously. I think I said that twice. So yeah, there's Cain, you know, wandering throughout, you know, Egypt, or I'm sorry, not Egypt, through, you know, the land of Nod, I think, too. And there's kind of a comical way that he voices, like, you know, like the way that Garden of Eden, like he starts out right off the bat with the Garden of Eden too, like of how, you know, the angel that was placed there with a fiery sword, you know, guarding the gates so that Adam and Eve wouldn't enter back in, and, you know, God cursing them out, and for eating from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, of, you know, so yeah, there's a lot of the same kind of meat to the story, but there's a different, you know, it's shines a light, I guess, more on the atrocities that happen in the Bible too, of like, you know, like the leveling of Sodom and Gomorrah for one, you know, and there's kind of a funny thing where Cain, or I'm sorry, not Cain, Lot, I think is asking God of, you know, to be, you know, like, if there was just one holy person in all of Sodom, and he's like, no, like, what about 10 holy people, you know, what about 10 times 10, and he's like, no, and like, what about 10 times 10 times 10, and he's just, it was like kind of funny, like the way he kind of reiterated that kind of almost like offbeat kind of humor to this novel, but it's also dark too, like it doesn't shy away from kind of the murky aspect, I guess, of primeval, you know, like early man, antiquated times of that were a lot different. Like stonings and stuff, like all that, all these different things were free game, like very tribal mentality too. So yeah, that is Cain, all I have for now. I definitely recommend, but probably not as a first read for Saramago. I definitely recommend something else like Blindness first. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be reading more of him, and that is all I have for today. Thanks for watching.